Hey friends. So, if you watched my very first video, which is my personal journey with introversion, how I went from anxious agoraphobic to adventurer abroad, then now we'll get into preparing to travel, like getting that bug to get out of your shell, um, and how to do it. Because no, you are not going to just be scrolling on Instagram or scrolling on socials and you see all these people moving to Thailand or Panama or Brazil or anywhere around the world. And you're like, oh, I want to do that too, but I'm scared. And then you do it and you're not prepared. So let's get prepared realistically, not with the flashy videos, not with the curated list. Even though I'm going to link two of my favorite creators who black women who give really awesome advice in depth on the steps to take once you found your location. I'm not going to get into whole like you need these visas, you need these remote jobs. This is where you go with the flashy visuals. I'm not going to do that. That's not my vibe. But I am going to give you the realistic life tips of A to Z. Okay. So stay tuned. This is a series of 8 videos. This is number 2. Let's go. So the first part, choosing your destination mindfully. Like mindfulness for me is so important in this journey of going from high anxiety and feeling stuck in my hometown to traveling abroad. When once you embody yourself and your goals, can't nobody tell you anything. Okay, nobody can deter you. Once you are mindful and aware of how you move in this world, and how then you interact with other people and how you want to interact with other people and the experience of life that you want to have, that's honestly one of the biggest parts. And so choosing your location that reflects that and aligns with that, that will take you so far. Especially because your nervous system will have a chance to reset. Your nervous system, which is the key component of all of this, will have an opportunity to create new stories for you so that you're not constantly in a loop of your anxiety, and staying captured by your introversion. You'll have the floor to break free, right? So, choosing your destination. Again, I started with DC in that trip. The reason why we chose DC, me and my mom, is because after so much heaviness and grief, where I was a full time caregiver, she was working full time and also caregiving for my grandmother. Um, and it was a heavy load mentally, physically, spiritually, emotionally, financially, all it was a lot at once. um, and so we chose a place that was vibrant, full of life, full of culture, full of history, full of landmarks, where we didn't have so much time to sit and ruminate. um, Instead, it was a time where we could say, oh, let's go see the Martin Luther King monument. Let's go see the White House. Let's get on a bus and explore. And let's go to, was it Ben's Chili Bowl? Like all of these things were high energy without being draining. They were exciting, they were new, and there were stories and experiences behind these places. It wasn't just going just to go and walk around and then there's nothing else. No, the way I planned it, it was a seamless flow of energy levels. Like we could keep our energy levels in mind. If there was a day where we had a lot of activities, for example, or we were in a hub with a lot of activities, I then planned for the next day or the last part of the day to be more calm and restful, have more calm events. And that's very, very key to choose a location that if you are a more reserved person, like me, when I started this living abroad journey, I chose Korea thinking of DC because I knew that there were hubs within South Korea that if I was placed in Seoul, I would still be able to go outside of Seoul to the more calm areas, the healing spaces, as they're called in the culture. I knew that those, if I was placed in soul, I would be nearby at least what filled my soul up. And I wouldn't have to constantly be in a huge rush, in an energy of rush, right? I would still be connected to conveniences. Coincidentally and blessedly, I was placed in the rural, very highly rural areas with the mountain between the mountain and the sea in Gangwon-do, an hour away from North Korea, which again was sensationalized. It was one of the most beautiful, peaceful places in the world. Um, and I'll try to show some videos or photos there. But that was soothing to my soul. It was full of nature, just full of plants and wild grapes and herons, and like I said, the sea and the mountains. And it was perfect. And I was only 2 hours away from Seoul, which gave me the boosts of energy that I needed and the higher pace of social interactions that I needed on the weekends. So that is, I stayed mindful of myself and my needs and my energy levels throughout, um, because I chose a country that I knew could fit so many different varied needs for what I wanted. When you do your research, make sure that because you're spending your time, your money, your energy preparing to go to this place, you don't want to get there and you have that culture shock. You're navigating culture shock after culture shock on top of your nervous system not having a chance to rest. That's no good. Um, so I'll say keep that in mind. Keep your energy levels in mind. And also you may not have all the answers right now of who you are and what your objectives are, but you should also, I'd say, make a vision board. I had Pinterest boards for 10 years. For 10 years, I kept a Pinterest board of all my locations and places that I wanted to visit. Make a vision board of who you see your highest self as, and then your choices as you make them will naturally start aligning with who you see yourself to be. And then you go from there. Like, that's really huge. And also journal about it, because I found that writing down my goals and dreams and manifestations, they tend to come true. It might take some time, but they tend to come true. And I have a journal entry from before I left to go to Korea. I was watching Korean dramas, learning the language, listening to Korean music because I truly, genuinely loved it. Not because it was like a phase or a fad or a trendy thing, but I fully embodied who I was in the future. And then I ended up finding the opportunity to travel to Korea. So I did the same thing when I went to Vietnam. I wrote in my journal the places that I wanted to go while I was in Korea, still navigating some health issues. I did not know I would be going to Vietnam at the time, but I just wrote it down and then I aligned my highest self and made choices that placed me there. That's really, really big. Now, in terms of packing and getting prepared, again, I'm going to link the people who go in depth in terms of the essentials, and I'll make a post about it. I'll do a blog or something, but I'm focused on these videos, girl. But for me, what kept me aligned were essential oils, to ground my senses, to ground me, and to give me a sense of familiarity between my hometown and the transition into a new environment, because I love lavender, right? And so I use lavender and chamomile and clary sage, eucalyptus, spike lavender, which just smells like a mix of eucalyptus and lavender. I use those at home in my apartment in my hometown. So when I transitioned over to South Korea, I filled up my apartment there, which was a highly unfamiliar place, with those same scents, and it gave me a sense of peace and calm within myself. I kept those on deck. I kept incense on deck. Patchouli, I absolutely love. I kept that on deck. The same playlist and types of music. Those are the things. Like, I packed like one or two of my NSYNC CDs because that's from my childhood, and so it was soothing when I was going through a rough time or navigating those culture shocks. After landing, I would put on some NSYNC and like dance my heart out to tearing up my heart, okay? Um, those things, those are packing essentials, okay? um, my books, especially if you're introverted and anxious. When you get in, depending on if you go to these new countries, either with a job program or you're going to seek a job, and you don't have your community fully settled, I would read all the time. Like that is really listening to music, putting on my essential oils and incense and making my house smell good and reading and getting lost in another world and allowing myself to ground at the same time, that was high. That was high on my priority list. Other than that, like packing essentials that you would need to take with you are your, of course, like your medications. You'll have to research what conveniences are available where you're going, such as like deodorant, if you have a favorite deodorant, because a lot of places honestly have different needs. Like in Korea, they don't really need our type, Western type of deodorants, for example. Pack that because otherwise it's going to be an arm and a leg when you get over there. Your favorite snacks, especially in that first transition, the first 3 months, I'll say, pack your favorite snacks to last you. Like I brought those gummy bears. I cannot think of the name of them, but they are delicious. I'll put a picture. I brought a 32 ounce bag of gummy bears, Cheez Its, and peanut butter Captain Crunch because that was my granny's favorite food and that became my favorite food. So I brought those comforts from home to get me through those first 3 months and getting acclimated to the foods, getting acclimated to, just not being in my hometown and not being in my apartment after being agoraphobic for 2 years. Because how the hell do you jump from being locked up in your house, in your apartment, in the comforts of your own home, to being in a whole new country and like wild, but it was a blessing and it happened, and so that helped me get through those first 3 months. Then also, okay, this one is big because if you're introverted, if you're anxious, if you are just reserved, boundaries are a thing that you have to work on, child. Like I mentioned in my first video about DC teaching me to be more assertive because I was able to take leadership and control of certain situations where things felt like they were not in my control, or it would have been a person taking advantage, like the Korean mother and daughter who were saying derogatory things. I could have sat there with my mom, knowing that I understood it. I could have sat there with my mom and just let it go, but I took control of that situation and I set a boundary that if you're going to be sitting here with us, because I can understand you saying derogatory things about us being set here, then I'm going to let you know that that's not correct. That is a personal boundary because not only did you and your mom come here to enjoy yourself and have a good time, I also came here with my mom to have a good time, especially after navigating such a huge loss. So, setting personal boundaries is so important. You will, like I said, learn your voice and learn that you belong in this world. That is the biggest, my belief system through all of this is knowing that I belong in this world. That has shifted my entire perspective on how I take control of my anxieties and worries and introversions and tendencies to still to this day holds up in my apartment, not wanting to go out because I'll have social anxiety pop up. But then the realization that I belong in this world propels me out to explore this world. Even coming here to this cafe, it took me a week to get the motivation to get out of the house and put some clothes on and come out into the world, into the sunshine. And then I finally had to take a deep breath and realize that, girl, once you're out here, the world is not as bad as it seems. Even like watching the news, and I'll say it's funny that now, 2026, yeah, it's the same energy from 2016 and what propelled me to get my passport. If you're feeling the same way I was feeling then, if you are me then, where the world seems so crazy, there are so many changes going on. There's so much that you think, oh, I'm thinking about making these changes. I'm thinking about making these shifts. I'm hopeful for the future because I'm feeling a spark. But then the world is telling you that it's dangerous or it's hopeless to even start this. It's why even try, because the world is crazy, people are crazy. No, Don't let that rule you. Because when you get out there, you will realize once you make your space in the world, once you even just put in the effort to show up, take every day as it comes. It has to be day by day. And that does include setting personal boundaries. You're setting personal boundaries with yourself first because you're telling yourself that I trust myself. I trust myself to go out into the world and be able to hold my own. I trust myself to speak up if somebody crosses me. I trust myself to remove myself if the situation does become unsafe. I trust myself. Like that's before you can set a personal boundary with anybody else, you have to set it with yourself. That's girl, that's I learned that so hard before I departed, before I even stepped foot on a plane, before I even thought about getting my passport. Like that was key. And then the mental resilience that comes from setting personal boundaries with yourself. That comes from then going out into the world and showing yourself that you can keep your own word to yourself. That builds mental resilience. That builds up that fortification that you need so that when you go to another country, like when I went to Korea, people are taking pictures and a whole bus full of ajumas and ajushis, old people, just with their phones out taking pictures, walking down the street, people just taking pictures. And I would just start posing, okay, but then after a while, I would have to say, Anil, no, not right now, not right now. Um, and you will start, moving through the world like you somebody because you are. So I'll go into even more in the next video. The next one is like what steps you're gonna take. Like once you get abroad, that was what I just talked about is encouragement for you to know that you have to trust yourself before you even think about going abroad. You have to put in place, you know, all of the concrete foundations that you need before you go abroad. Okay. So I'll see you in the next video.